Welcome, everyone, to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something huge, a moment that's really sent shockwaves. For the very first time, the United States has, well, launched direct military attacks on Iran.
It's a massive escalation.
Mm.
There's no other way to put it, in a region already on edge.
Exactly. And we've gathered, a lot of material, a lot of reports, the president's speech, various analyses to try and make sense of it all.
Yeah, our goal here, our mission for you in this deep dive is to kind of sift through everything, pull out the really crucial bits. What's the immediate fallout? What were they trying to achieve?
And how are people reacting? Because the reactions are all over the place.
Right. And ultimately, what could this mean, down the road for the Middle East, for global stability? Big questions.
Okay, let's dive in. The reports talk about massive precision strikes. So what exactly happened, under the cover of darkness?
Well, the U.S. military hit three key Iranian nuclear facilities. We're talking Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan.
And this is described as historic, right? Because it's the first time the U.S. has ever attacked Iran directly.
Precisely. It's a major turning point. It takes the existing shadow conflict, particularly between Iran and Israel, and throws it right out into the open.
And President Trump didn't mince words afterwards. He called the attacks, extremely successful.
Oh, yeah. Extremely success. A complete and total success. A great success. Even spectacular military success. He claimed the facilities were, quote, completely and totally obliterated. Strong language.
Let's zoom in on those targets, though.
Services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say, we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Fordow, Natanz, Isfahan, why the specific sites?
Good question. Fordow especially tells a story. It's described as one of Iran's most protected sites, buried deep underground.
Right.
And apparently it took the biggest hit. Now, this is interesting because getting at Fordow requires something special.
What's that?
It needs that massive ordnance penetrator. It's a 30,000-pound bunker-busting bomb. Only the U.S. has it, carried on a B-2 bomber.
Wow. So using that signals a pretty serious intent.
Absolutely. It says, we can reach even your most secure assets. For the other two, Natanz and Isfahan, the reports mention Tomahawk cruise missiles. Over 30 of them launched from U.S. submarines.
So a combination of air and sea power. And the stated objective, according to the president.
He was very clear. It was about, quote, the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror.
Okay, let's talk about the timing. Because this seemed to come out of the blue for many people, didn't it?
It really did. A surprise for the most part, as one report put it.
Just 2 days before, President Trump had said he might take, up to 2 weeks to decide on getting involved in the Israel-Iran fight?
Exactly. So to go from that to launching massive strikes suggests a very, very quick decision, perhaps a conclusion that diplomacy just wasn't going to cut it.
And he issued an ultimatum alongside the strikes.
A very stark one. He said, Iran must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. And then added, there are many targets left.
That's quite the warning. What was his justification for acting now?
He pointed to Iran's long history of aggression, mentioned the death to America, death to Israel chants going back 40 years. And he specifically referenced Iran's alleged role in killing over 1,000 U.S. personnel, plus hundreds of thousands across the Middle East, using roadside bombs, calling it their specialty.
So connecting it to past actions as well. Now, how does this fit into the bigger picture strategically? You mentioned Israel.
Right. The coordination seems pretty clear. Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump appeared to coordinate their messages, both talking about peace through strength.
Strength first, then peace.
That was the framing. And Netanyahu specifically thanked Trump repeatedly, profusely even.
Okay, so it's linked to the recent escalations too. Iran getting more directly involved against Israel after October 7th.
Definitely. You had Iranian proxies like Hezbollah hitting Israel from the north, and then Iran itself firing ballistic missiles at Israel, both in April and then again just recently in October 2024.
And there was this key event just before the U.S. strike, wasn't there? Israel's action.
Yes, that seems crucial. On October 24th, reports say Israel took out Iran's ballistic missiles. And, maybe more importantly, its air defenses.
So that left Iran vulnerable.
It left a very weakened Iran, according to analysis. And that might have created this narrow window of opportunity for the U.S. to strike decisively.
So the decision to go big hit 3 sites. Was that about completely ending the program or something else?
The thinking seems to be more about setting the program back significantly, maybe by several years. The analysts point out, you can't bomb away know-how. The knowledge is still there.
But you can destroy the facilities and equipment, delay things.
Exactly. Buy time, disrupt their progress.
Okay, so the strikes happened, the justification's out there. Now the reactions, this is where it gets really interesting and potentially dangerous. How is Iran responding?
Well, Iran's initial public response on state TV has been defiant. They're pushing back, saying the attack was not as successful as President Trump is framing it.
Are they claiming they knew it was coming?
They're suggesting that, yeah, saying materials had already been evacuated from those sites. Whether that's true or just managing perceptions, we don't know yet.
But the big concern now must be retaliation, right?
Absolutely. That's the immediate worry, retaliation against U.S. interests, U.S. assets. That could mean American bases in the region, troops stationed there.
And that could come from Iran directly or through its proxies, Hezbollah, militias in Iraq, Syria.
Exactly. Those proxy networks are extensive. Their attacks might often be smaller scale rockets, mortars, but as reports note, they can be very deadly.
And is the U.S. preparing for that possibility?
Oh, definitely. Significant defensive assets have been moved into the region. We're talking Patriot missile interceptors on the ground, more ships with ballistic missile defense capabilities, air power, fighter jets.
And aircraft carriers.
Yeah, there are now 2 carrier strike groups in the CNTCOM area. That's the Central Command region covering the Middle East. And reports say a 3rd is on the way. It's a major show of force and readiness.
Given that background, though Israel's supposedly weakening Iran's defenses beforehand, it raises questions about the imminent danger argument used by some supporters of the strike back home, doesn't it?
It does. And that feeds directly into the political debate here. You've got really sharp divisions on Capitol Hill.
What are we hearing from Democrats?
A lot of condemnation. People like House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Senator Tim Kaine. They're focusing on the lack of congressional approval.
Calling it unconstitutional.
Yes, a grave violation of the Constitution, violating war powers. Warnings about getting sucked into another long conflict, being ensnared for generations. AOC even mentioned it as potential grounds for impeachment.
Wow, strong words. And on the other side, Republicans.
Many Republicans and some Democrats, like Senator John Fetterman and Speaker Mike Johnson, are backing the president. They see it as targeted, necessary.
The imminent danger argument.
Right. Asserting the U.S. was in imminent danger. So, a fundamental disagreement about the justification and the process.
And what about the intelligence? Didn't the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, testify fairly recently that Iran wasn't actually building a bomb?
That's a key point causing confusion. Her testimony back in March stated that Iran was not moving toward developing a nuclear weapon. So the question is, what changed? Will new intelligence be presented to explain this apparent shift?
That'll be crucial to watch. And domestically, this must be tricky for President Trump himself politically.
It could be. He campaigned heavily on getting the U.S. out of foreign wars, not deeper into them. So this could, create divisions even within his own base.
Is there polling on this?
Early polling suggests more Americans disapprove the U.S. getting involved in the Middle East. So public opinion might not be fully behind this.
And internationally, how's it being framed?
Interestingly, the U.S. ambassador to the UN drew a direct line to the Holocaust, invoking the never again principle, framing Iran's stated desire to annihilate the Jewish state as a potential repeat that needed preempting.
So presenting it as preventing a future atrocity. Okay, it's a really complex picture. What does it all mean for what happens next? Where do we go from here?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? What happens now?
Yeah.
That's what everyone is asking.
Will Iran hit back directly at U.S. forces?
That's possibility number one. Or will they use proxies? Unleash a wave of terrorism.
Or maybe they'll just double down on the nuclear program, bury it deeper.
That's another risk, making it even harder to get at in the future. Experts seem to agree you can't totally end the program with bombs.
Well, you can delay it.
You can delay it by a year, maybe even a decade, some suggest. But many observers are saying the U.S. is now de facto at war with Iran. The stakes are incredibly high.
What about diplomacy? Is there any path left for talks?
It's really uncertain. Iran's foreign minister has said in the past that Iran is always at the negotiating table, but they feel manipulated.
How so?
He described past negotiations as a bait and switch, feeling like they were lured into a trap. So the question now is, will this strike force them back to the table, maybe for a deal they see as less humiliating? Or does it just harden their stance and lead to more conflict?
So many unknowns. As we look ahead just in the next few days or weeks, what are the key things to watch for?
Well, vigilance from the international community is critical. Russia and China are unlikely to jump in militarily. They have their own interests tied to Iran, like cheap drones for Russia or cheap oil for China.
But their diplomatic reactions will matter.
Absolutely. And we have some high-level meetings coming up. President Trump is heading to NATO next week. This will obviously be topic number one.
Yeah, the Pentagon.
Press conference scheduled for tomorrow morning. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane, and the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth.
We should get more military details then.
Any other key appearances?
Vice President J.D. Vance is scheduled for Meet the Press, so we'll likely hear more administration framing there. It seems like the immediate aftermath is going to be critical in shaping how this whole thing is viewed.
Completely. The legacy of this action for the president, for the U.S., really hangs on what happens in the coming days, weeks, maybe even months.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here, diving into these U.S. strikes on Iran. A truly monumental event, full of risks, complex reactions, and a very uncertain future ahead.
It really is. And as you think about all this, maybe consider this question. You have this deep, tangled adversarial history between the U.S., Israel, and Iran going all the way back to 1979. How might that history shape what comes next? Or could it be fundamentally changed by the president's really stark choice he laid out? There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran. Something to ponder.